And that's the thing that we're seeing with a lot of our young professionals now, where it's like, I've done everything you asked me to do.
Mm-hmm.
I stayed late. I've worked 18, 20-hour days.
Mm-hmm.
I've slept in my office. I produced time and time and time again. But yet and still, you're telling me that I'm not good enough?
Mm-hmm.
Yet and still, you're telling me that I'm not worthy of this promotion?
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing my job, his job, and her job.
Mm-hmm.
And you're telling me that they still get a higher salary than I do?
Yeah.
That make sense.
Welcome to The Technical Creative, a show produced by STEMedia about career development and personal growth in both the technical and creative spaces. I am your host, Dr. Nehemiah Mabry, and my guest today is Dr. Randolph Brooks. He's a licensed clinical psychologist, and if you want to learn why some people need to try a lot of different jobs and others are easily satisfied where they are, what to do if you're in a toxic work environment, and did he say he knows my dad? Stay tuned right here on The Technical Creative. Yo, Randolph Brooks, what's up, man? How you doing?
Doing well, sir. How you doing?
All right,
Dr. Mabry?
Dr. Brooks.
Dr. Mabry.
Thank you, man. Thank you, man. It's good to have you. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we had your wife a couple of months ago.
Right.
That was before the rebrand, before kind of the whole new look and everything. And shout out to Tanisha, who's also your coworker.
Yes.
Your wife.
Co-founder, yes.
Co-founder.
She's really and truly, she's the boss.
She's the boss?
Yeah, I work for her.
Yeah, all right, you work for her. Here's a question I got to start with then, man, because we talked about on that podcast how you all have a business together.
Yeah.
You both, Brooks Psychological Services.
Yes, sir.
And before we get into your path, how in the world does that even work? You and your wife.
You have to have, like, I don't like going into the whole idea of like a patriarchy sort of thing.
Yeah.
But you have to have a head.
Okay.
And with her, that's pretty much her full-time job. That's pretty much her full-time gig. So
okay.
I have to run things through her.
Right.
You know, I definitely have a full say in everything. But when it comes to like, okay, let's look at this client, or let's look at that client, chances are they're going to have to go through her first.
Right.
And so we have to have this sort of setup because in the reality of the situation, it's not a side hustle for either of us.
Right.
But she is the brand manager. She is the office manager.
And that understanding helps.
Right.
So you're not equal to, you don't find yourself being like, hold up now, like Brooks, that's my name. Like, let's don't get into it. Okay, all right.
No, not at all. Because we wanted to be successful.
Yeah.
And you have to let your ego down because you definitely could be in a situation where like, hold up.
Yeah.
Nah, we're going to do this.
Right.
But when you think about it, my wife, she's the one who has to do most of the cleanup if something goes wrong. She's also the one who has to like manage the books. She's also the one who has to
more skin in the game, basically.
In essence, yeah. Because while she's able to focus on that side of the business, I can be a face. I can go talk to some people. Yeah. But when it comes to like running the numbers and everything, she's doing that. Yeah.
She got that. I got you. Well, listen, man, let's tell people who you are because again, we have people who are watching this. They may have seen that episode, but they haven't met you. So tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you're a licensed psychologist.
Yes, sir.
Right? Give us your journey, man. How'd you get into this line of work?
Long. I'm not gonna do that. But started my career working in college mental health. Okay. I went to undergrad at Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia. Went to graduate school at Virginia State University for my master's and my Ph.D. Okay. Now the thing about it is, I had no idea what I wanted to do. In undergrad, I found my way into psychology after going through pre-law and pre-engineering.
Oh, so you did pre-engineering.
Man, look. First,
you were one of us at one point. Okay.
First, I understood numbers. Yeah. But then when numbers turned into letters, and then those letters turned into Greek letters, and then those numbers turned into Greek letters that were uppercase and then lowercase, and it all meant something different. I was all like, you know what? This hurts. This hurts my brain. So man. I actually wanted to do structural or civil engineering. That's what I was trying to do.
That's what I did. Yeah.
I was learning about building trusses and bridges and everything like that. I'm like, this is kind of cool. But okay, now my head hurts. Like I didn't do well in calculus. So switched over to pre-law. And then Dr. Abraham Davis, I'll never forget that man.
This is at Morehouse?
Yeah.
Okay.
He came into a pre-law class with a book about that thick. Let me show him. Like, the book was about that thick. Wow. And he's like, we're going to cover this from cover to cover in this one semester. I'm like, you know what? I'm out.
That's a lot of reading.
Not a lot. It was just a lot of dense, heavy reading. Like I read it, but I'm over here like, I don't remember what happened in page 1. So I don't think I could actually be good at this because I actually didn't retain the information. Right. I did decent in the class, but I didn't actually retain anything. So that's kind of scared me a little bit. Like, how can I actually do law they can't actually retain what I'm reading.
You on page 50 and you already forgot what was in page 10. Like,
yeah, it was just like that.
Yeah.
You know, so then talking to one of my professors, Dr. Dwayne Jackson at Morehouse.
Okay, shout
out.
out.
Talked about, he talked about how psychologists know more about every other field than any field knows about psychology, which made me think, so in essence, he was telling me, well, you can do psychology just to graduate.
Yeah.
Because you're struggling, son, because, you know, you're out here hitting your second semester of your sophomore year, and you're talking about changing majors again.
Yeah, we need to get you out of here real quick.
Right, exactly. So it's like, you know, you can do this and get out and you can still go wherever you want to go afterwards. I'm like, all right, bet, let me do that. And finish, get into grad school now, because again, what you gonna do with a bachelor's in psychology?
Right.
Not much.
Okay.
Got into grad school at Virginia State, still not quite sure what I wanted to do, but I knew I could not do anything with a bachelor's in psychology.
But you went to grad school. Why did you go to grad school?
Because I had to do something.
You had to buy more time.
Pretty much. Like I'm back home with my mom, and she was all like, well, I don't know what you're gonna do.
Okay.
And you're working at this grocery store, you know, but you plan on being a manager? Nah, chief. So I'm not trying to do that, so we gotta do something else.
Okay.
So started in grad school. Everything that I was doing was telling me what I didn't want to do. Started working with children, like
wow. Process of elimination.
Right.
Yeah.
Kids are great, but parents are annoying.
That you got to deal with them.
Yeah. I mean, working with the kids, I'm getting progress out of the kids.
Right.
When they go home to their parents who aren't on board, this ain't going to work.
Right.
Military installation. All my soldiers kept moving from station to station, so I couldn't actually do any meaningful work with them.
Oh, you were working at a military installation with kids?
Oh, no, adults. So
this was a different job.
Yeah. Did the kids.
Okay.
Did the military.
Right.
Did community mental health.
Wow.
Worked at psychiatric hospital. Went and worked geriatric hospital.
Yeah.
All of those places. I'm like,
all right, brother, let me ask you this real quick, because you're a psychologist. Is there anything you can tell us now that you reflect on what you were doing, right? Because, you know, some people seem like they have a linear path to their career. And then some people seem like they may have a little blip here and there, but they pretty much, you know, still on the path. And then you have people who sound like you, like, I tried this. And then eventually, is there a certain way of thinking that kind of leads to that type of path?
In my case, it was a situation of I'm always learning something.
Okay.
I'm learning what I don't want, which helps me figure out what I do want.
Yeah.
Because all these things, I liked it. I was decent at it, but eventually I would get burnt out.
Are you more prone to that for some reason, though? Were you a person who liked to try and taste different things? Novelty, was that something?
Novelty definitely was a thing for me early on.
Okay.
And especially in graduate school, because I was scared.
Okay.
No, so as a kid, it was like, this is new, exciting, let me try this.
Yeah.
As an adult, I'm like, I need to figure something out. And I'm scared because I keep going and finding things I don't like. I don't want to end up being one of these people who dreads waking up in the morning. I don't want to be one of these people who dreads going to work.
You feared being in a dead-end job, basically.
Pretty much.
Okay.
Pretty much, like, you know, like, for example, the geriatric hospital.
Okay.
At the time, they were paying over $100,000 to work at a geriatric.
Nice.
And I'm over here like, okay, fresh out of grad school, making six figures.
Yeah.
But I got to this point where, like, I actually don't like being here.
I'm not happy.
Right.
Damn.
And as much as people say, well, you know, money can't buy happiness. No, money does get you security.
Right.
But it doesn't get you happiness. And so when I got to that place where I'm all like, I actually don't want to go to this hospital.
Wow.
I don't want to go to work. I don't.
Yeah.
I've realized this is not the job for me.
And this was after your master's.
Yeah.
All right. So I want to ask you about your PhD in a second. But again, just to continue to double tap on that, why is it that some people, I don't know, like pursue that feeling of joy of going to work every day, and other people are like, screw that. If I'm getting paid enough, I'll find my joy on the weekends. I'll find my joy at night. Like, what's the difference between those people?
Well, for some people, that money is necessary. Like, you got to think about people who may growing up poor, or people who have financial instability, especially as grad students. You've been there.
Yeah, you've been poor.
Grad students are poor,
Yeah.
and we need some stability in our lives,
Right.
especially financial stability. So if I can find a job that gives me that stability, I can push through.
Okay.
And for a lot of people, like, I can push through, but to what end? To what point? If you have a plan, you know, you can do anything. So if you were to say, like, all right, I'm going to do this job that's probably dead end, but it's going to get me my loans paid off.
Like, then I'll
do it.
I'm gonna make sure I don't have to like stress over another bill.
Right.
Like I can go on a vacation occasionally.
Right.
Like I'm good.
Right.
And I really wonder too why there's some generational differences there too, because you have like certain generations where it's like, passionate about your job? Who said you got to be passionate about your job? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
While others may say, nah, man, like it may be good for you. This job may look good on paper. And it seems like you were like that. It may look good on paper, but this is not where I want to be. This is not where I'm supposed to be.
Right.
Got you.
And the thing is, you see it with people. You see those people who were struggling, trudging through that dead end job, but they also had that light at the end of the tunnel where, I'm going to get my pension.
Right.
I'm going to get my retirement money.
30 more years. I'll get my pension.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And me, I'm coming up like, man, look, all this doom and gloom I've been hearing,
right.
Social Security is going to run out by 2028. Or, no jobs have pensions anymore.
Yep.
You have to put your money in the 401k.
Right.
How many times you see the stock market go up and go down?
Right. You're like, that's no security.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you have these people now, and I'm kind of in line with some of this stuff where it's like, you just got to live for today.
Gotcha.
Not like you're going to still save and plan for tomorrow and all of that other stuff.
Right.
But how much saving and planning are you going to do for a life that you aren't going to live?
Yeah.
So when you have people who are saying, well, I do want to take a trip to South Africa.
Okay.
I do want to take that trip to Antarctica.
Right.
Well, cool. How do you plan for that and make it happen? Because let's be real. If you wait until you're 65, our life expectancy, real talk, is like somewhere in the early 70s.
Man, we ain't got much more time after that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Right. And especially if you
no offense to people
sick,
over 65 watching this, but I understand the feeling. It's like in the grand scheme of things. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have people now who are like, well, if I can do both, let me do both. If I can wake up in the morning and still feel good about waking up and going to this job,
right?
Let's do that. Even if it is a bit of a pay cut.
Yep.
I need that satisfaction throughout my day.
Right.
But the other people, like, well, this 100 plus.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go ahead and take my vacation this summer.
Right. So listen, man, like you, for some reason, again, went back to school.
I had to figure it out.
So it was buying more time for you or what? Because there's this idea, and I want to hear your answer, but there's this idea of the further you go in school, really the more narrow you are in the area of study.
Yeah.
So something about you knew that you were sort of in the area when it comes to psychology, right?
Right.
Okay.
And the thing about psychology, when I was in my master's and I was buying more time.
Okay.
Was, I got to figure something out, and this is the only thing I seem qualified for.
Okay.
But when I got into the Ph.D. program, and you started getting into more of the social psychology side of things, you started doing the clinical work, you're starting to say, like, I can see where I can make a difference. Mm-hmm. And especially when, again, you're seeing all these places that you aren't happy, or all these places that are like, I can do the work, but it's not going to be fulfilling to me.
Right.
And then I started working with college students at Virginia State.
Okay.
I'm like, oh, snap. This feels different.
Right.
And so then I tested it a little bit. I'm like, well, let me see if it's just because I was at Virginia State and it felt comfortable there.
Yeah.
And then I went up to New Hampshire and did it. I'm like, okay, I'm here by myself.
Same demographic.
Yeah.
Virginia State was at HBCU.
Yeah.
People don't know, but then in New Hampshire, you weren't at HBCU.
Yeah.
All right.
In the neighborhood, in the city I was in this is legit, honest truth. In the city I was in for a year, I saw 5 black people. In the city that I was in, I saw 5.
It wasn't, what is it?
One of them left.
So 20% of the black population left?
Right.
Okay.
And so, but again, it was the same sort of feeling of, but I like what I'm doing. Like, even though it could be snow up to my waist.
Right.
Like, I got pictures on my phone. I'll show you some other time where I had snow on my eyelashes, my snow up in my nose. Everything was cold and freezing. I still got up because I loved what I was doing.
Is that where you did your PhD in New Hampshire?
Oh, no, I did a PhD at Virginia State.
So you said master's and PhD at Virginia State. And then after you got out of school, you went to New Hampshire.
Oh, that was for an internship, my pre-doc internship.
So you had a short-term stint there.
And that was the thing where, you can do anything for a short period of time if you have a plan.
Right. And
then after that, I stayed, and that's where I met my wife. Going down to Boston.
Oh, okay. Okay. We had to get that story, right? So you had your wife while you were doing the internship?
Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah,
all right.
That's God right there.
That's God, bro. All right.
And so then after I finished internship, I stayed up in Connecticut.
Okay.
Again, different demographic, but still like I'm happy doing what I'm doing.
Right. It wasn't environmentally dependent. It was the work you were doing was what you wanted to do.
And, for some people, it is the environment. Like some people, and we're going to get into this a little bit.
That's what I was going to say, yeah.
When you talk about the job that you're in, some people, the only thing that keeps them at their job is their coworkers. For some people, the only thing that keeps them at their job is the work that they're doing.
Yeah.
And for me, it was the work. I mean, the coworkers were great.
Right.
But whether I'm in New Hampshire or Connecticut or
Virginia,
I still love the work.
Right.
And I haven't had bad coworkers. Like, let's be clear. Now, I don't know who's going to see this.
Right.
I haven't had bad coworkers.
No shade.
None. But at the same time, if you switched out my coworkers and I was still in the same space, I'm like, I still like this. I like who I'm working with.
Right.
I like these students. I like this developmental part in life.
Yeah.
All of those things what keep me moving. And so, as you're saying with like being an engineer, when you find that what you like doing,
right.
And for a lot of people, it doesn't matter where you go.
Yeah.
Now, the pay is a different story.
Now, listen, here's the thing, right? So I love that and we can kind of compartmentalize. The work was, you found satisfaction in the work itself.
Right.
And then, again, shout out to your wife, you found some personal success, some relationship success
Right.
there, right? So that only added to your overall fulfillment. But to your point, that's still not the totality of life.
Right.
All right. So let's talk about those other things. You got pay, you got the environment, which wasn't a big factor for you, but is for other people, as you shared. Let's break some of that down. Like, are there necessary minimums that should take place in these different buckets of your life?
Yes,
Okay.
there most certainly are. And of course, that's going to be different for everybody.
Okay.
But when you start doing that interrogative work,
Yeah.
trying to figure out what matters most to you, because you do know that there are those people, like, let's be real. If you had a lifestyle in which you grew up poor, like, I'm not trying to like call anybody out in particular, but you know money matters more than for someone who grew up affluent.
Right.
So we grew up affluent. It's like, well, yeah, you know, money's okay, but this other thing matters more.
Right.
Those people who grew up in the family that have a loving family around them, they're like, I need to feel supported with the people around me because I got to spend all my time with you.
Right.
So yeah, money may not be the most important thing for them, but that environment matters more. So as people are starting to think for themselves what matters most, you start looking into how you fill your buckets accordingly. So for me, in my situation, my parents were great. I love my parents.
Right.
But I also saw my dad get to a point in his career where he's like, you know what? I don't like this anymore. I saw my mom get to a point in her career, and she openly spoke about this, where my mom, you know, she was a pathologist.
Okay.
And so she did all of her work on essentially cadavers. She got tired of seeing people dead on her table.
Yeah.
So she wanted to do a career change. But she did her career change like after being a pathologist for like 25 years.
Wow.
And so I'm over here like, I saw how hard it was for her to try to make a career change after doing it
Deep
for 25
into
years.
her career, yeah.
Right. You know, she's talking about she's department director.
Right.
She's like running the pathology department in multiple hospitals. So she's like all the way up there at the top.
Yeah.
To then go back down at the bottom to start over.
So that had an impression on you.
Yes.
You know, that's so crazy because, I'm an engineer by training, but I'm also, right now, I'm a full-time entrepreneur. So I still engage my engineering through all the things we're doing. I'm a licensed engineer, but I have this company, STEMedia, that produces this show. Shout out to the team. But here's the thing, like, I also saw my father have a lot of like entrepreneurial ideas, have a lot of like aspirations, have a lot of things that he said, you know, he would have pursued, he could have pursued. But meanwhile, he was working his entire career for the federal government.
Right.
You know, he had a great retirement plan, and shout out to my dad now, he's retired and everything.
Living life.
Yeah, living life. But it's crazy now that you talk about your experience. I think seeing his ambition, his ideation, and his sort of desire, unfulfilled in some respects, had an impression on me that made me say, you know what, I have the credentials, but I'm going to go ahead and try this thing called entrepreneurship.
Right.
That's basically what
it is.
Okay.
You know, after watching these things play out with my mom, I was like, you know what, I got to figure this one out early. I got to take my time to figure out what's actually going to make me happy.
Right.
With you and your dad, like, shout out to your dad, because your dad is, okay, a little sidebar.
Yeah.
He's like the only person that I know who could talk about anything.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You know my dad. I forgot. Yo, I just forgot. See, I'm sitting here. So he's met my dad. Randolph has met my dad before you and I met.
Right.
In a totally different city.
Right.
When you were in Virginia.
Yeah. Met him in Richmond.
Oh, that's crazy. I just clicked. I knew that, but I just clicked again. Yeah.
And he's the only person that I actually met who can talk about pretty much anything.
Yeah.
Any topic, any subject. And he could talk in depth about it.
Yeah.
You know, so to see somebody who has that sort of mental capacity, who can just go ahead and do almost anything.
Yeah.
It makes sense why you're looking here like,
that's
well,
what's up, man.
I can do pretty much whatever I want.
Yes, he did. He definitely instilled that because he has, like I say, he's a brilliant guy, always encouraging, always positive. Joe, that's crazy. I'm talking about my dad. He knows my dad, Joe. but yeah, no, that's absolutely right. And it had an impression on me, not just from him being like that, but also seeing how his career went.
Right.
I had an opportunity to have that as a reference and then say to myself, how do I want my career to go?
Right. And that's the exact same thing where my dad, again, he was in the military. He all the way through was in the Navy, got up to E7. So he's up there being real productive, doing whatever he wants at a certain point. But then we're getting close to retirement. You're like, well, what do I want to do now? Yeah. And I'm hearing him talk about it. Like, this is stuff that, Dad, you said you wanted to do that 20 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, you want to start your flight school.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've been flying planes for almost 30 years. You've been wanting to do that for a minute now. You know, you were out here talking about you're going to start a lawn care business. Like, you take care of the yard like better than anybody I know.
Yeah, he has the skills. Yeah.
Right. But it's one of those things where he put the pension and all that first.
The security.
Exactly.
Supporting, keeping the family stable.
Right.
Yeah.
And we're seeing people now like, yes, like the family stability matters.
Yes.
It's top notch, but at the same time,
right,
if I am not present, because again, my dad being in the Navy, like my dad would tell this story all the time where I didn't recognize him until I was about 4 years old, because he would be gone for 6 months a year.
You were like, who's this dude?
On duty, yeah.
Yeah.
He'd be gone in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea, in the middle of the Red Sea, somewhere in the Pacific.
Yeah.
And then come back. 6 months home, 6 months gone, 6 months home, 6 months gone.
Yeah.
And, that's what he had to do.
Yeah.
And so you're seeing people now are saying, well, yeah, there are certain things I'm not going to sacrifice. There are certain things I will not sacrifice. And you're seeing that with a lot of young professionals now, thinking, what am I willing to sacrifice?
Right.
Some people are saying, well, maybe I will sacrifice a little bit of job stability now to start my own company, to start my own agency.
Right. And so what I hear you saying is, it's not like there's a one-size-fits-all order of priorities, right? All these things are important, but we have different kind of combinations of order of priorities for ourselves.
Right.
And that's influenced by what we saw growing up, what we experienced.
Exactly.
Okay.
Because when you think about the way our parents lived, the priority for my parents was securing that bag. Not to be funny about it, but they both grew up kind of poor. And so they needed to be in a position in which I can take care of my family.
Right.
I'm going to take care of my siblings, and we're all going to strive and thrive together.
Yeah.
Now we're seeing, well, I need to take care of these people around me, but I also need to take care of myself. I can't burn myself out.
Right. All right. So let's talk about that, right? Taking care of yourself, because I think, not that I think, and you've already talked about it, environment plays a role. And sometimes you can have competing values.
Right.
Where you're in a position, you're in a city, and you are very much dependent upon a paycheck. Or, let me say it this way, you've worked a lot of your life to get to a position. You've gotten the degrees. You've worked very hard to get there. But let's say you finally get that salary amount, or you finally get that job that you've been working so hard for, and it's a toxic environment. Right? Now, that has an impact. And I understand in your practice, you do a lot with that, and you help students even in the academic side of that. Share with us a little bit, or talk a little bit about how the environment can be toxic and can actually compete or counteract what you thought you ultimately wanted.
When we talk about an environment being toxic, we're talking about an environment that is actually draining, unwelcoming, a place that becomes a spot that you really don't want to be in. Now, when I think about work and I think about where I'm going to spend 40 plus hours a week, I need to be in a space in which I feel somewhat comfortable. And I need to be in a space in which I feel somewhat like I belong. We're starting to talk about people in the toxic environment, whether it's a workplace or an academic institution. We're talking about people who they have that feeling. And we know Black people get that gut feeling. People of color get that gut feeling, which they like, I don't know what's happening back there.
Right. I don't know if they want me here.
Right. And so when you start feeling that at work, where I got to spend 40 plus hours, when you break that down in 40 plus hours, you're talking about, 40 hours of work, 40 hours of sleep, 40 hours to do whatever you want. And that is your week. So 1/3 of my week, I'm in a space in which I don't feel welcome. And one third of my week, I'm in a space in which I feel as though it's draining me. It's killing me.
Right.
It's metaphorically, and in some cases, in reality, physically killing you. And that is what we want to avoid. Now, again, people will do what they have to for a purpose. So if you're saying, well, I'm going to put up with all of this because the end goal, this check is going to be able to provide for myself, for my family, for my extended family, people will put up with that. So you have to start weighing, again, you talking about those buckets before.
Right. But what's the that, Randolph? Like, what is the that they're putting up with? 'Cause let's unpack that, because you got situations where, you hear the term gaslighting, right? When people try to make you question your own reality. Like, I'm trying to think of an example off the top of my head. What are some things that you hear?
Boom. All right, so dealing with your employer who said, all right, look, I need you to have this assignment completed by January 15th. And so January 12th comes around. Where's this assignment? I told you I need it done by January 10th. Like,
you said 15th. Right.
Hold up. I had 5 more days. I had 3 more days on this assignment.
Right.
No, it was due 2 days ago. Since when? Per my email, you said blah, blah, blah. But we need this now. Something else changed, something happened. I need you to get on this right now. No, after a while, you start questioning, hold on. Do you actually want me to be successful here? And you're seeing some of the same sorts of things when it comes with mixed messaging. So in the academic institution, for example, we care about our students. We want our students to be successful. You want our students to take time for themselves. You want our students to have self-care.
Yeah.
While at the same time, you still need to have these 20,000 projects done at the exact same time. Now, let's be real.
Right.
That's been an environment that we've been in.
Right.
Where, you have these competing interests. And so the issue isn't the work. Let's be clear. The issue isn't the work.
Yeah.
The issue is the messaging around everything else, where you want me to take care of myself, but at the same time, this workload that I'm telling you is too much. There aren't any sort of changes or concessions on the workload.
Right. There's it's like saying one thing and doing another. Right. And I feel like that has definitely been the experience, when DEI became a hot topic a couple of years ago, at the death of George Floyd. Everyone put out their kind of reflex statements about being more welcoming environments. We as a company stand this, that, and the other. And since we've seen almost a backlash take place. Right. First, we saw kind of like performative statements. You get to places, and I can't speak for everyone, but we saw some that were like, hey, we're just doing this because everybody's doing it on the bandwagon. Right. But now it's almost like a whiplash taking place where it's like, I'm annoyed by the fact that I have to include you almost, or I have to even consider inclusion. Exactly. Now, and I want to say this too, because as you talk more about it, we know that like we also live in an environment where everything gets politicized. There are obvious extremes on every side. But ultimately, I think we can tell when a person is genuinely in support of and the intention is in line with something versus, oh, I just said that because I was supposed to say it and I wanted everybody to think that I'm good.
And you're absolutely correct. And, just want to take one quick step back. So when we're talking about like the work and work environments and everything, the issue isn't so much that you have work to do. The issue is around the messaging, the expectation, all the other stuff that's around that work. Okay. If I were to ask you, civil engineering, if I were to ask you to design this highway, and then I were to say, design this highway and get this highway project design done by X date. Cool. Yeah. That's your job. Yeah. Okay. But then when I start piling on other things on top of that, while I'm still having the same expectation as before when you had nothing else going on, that's where you start seeing these changes occur. And even as you're talking about these sorts of dynamic shifts that happen in our work environment, we're seeing the same thing that goes on outside of our work environment, where you're starting to see hypocrisy kind of sliding into the other topic that you were just bringing up, where, okay, I'm going to call you out for plagiarism while I plagiarize. I'm going to call you out for being incompetent when I actually have no idea what it is that you're doing. I'm going to call you out for all this other stuff because I have an ulterior motive. And that's that toxicity that we're talking about, where do you actually want me to finish this highway project? Right. Or do you want to just say you gave the highway project to a black guy who couldn't get it done? It's crazy because that level of scrutiny is very revealing, because we as people can pick we can make things seem like they're a very big deal, or we can make things seem like, oh yeah, that's not a big deal. And ultimately what happens is, if we can fuel the fire over, let's just say a mistake, because nobody's perfect, right? If we can fuel the fire and create an outrage over your mistakes, then we can forward a narrative that this just doesn't work. This just didn't work. And then conversely, we can actually distract or dismiss the same mistakes or the same errors when we don't want to create a narrative that this doesn't work. And let's be honest, many times it's not even a mistake. Many times it's just how things operate, but it's not the way you want it to operate. And so that's one of those things where, again, you're talking about that gaslighting from before, where we know how a system works, but for some reason the system works one way for one group, but then works a different way for a different group. And this is the sort of thing that you'll see people in C-suite talk about all the time, where I'm like, I'm doing my assignments, I'm doing my job, everything was working well, but then we had a change in CEO where everything was working well, then we had a change in the COO where everything was working well and I was getting my jobs done. But for some reason there was some sort of corporate shift, and now all of a sudden, what I was doing, which was successful and getting praised for, is now a problem. And it makes no sense, because there is no sort of objective actual code in which many of these corporations, many of these entities are actually operating by, because it is just what serves me, what serves the board, and that's really it. I think one of the ways that I have experienced this is my personality as an engineer. Like, I'm a very outgoing personality. I make content. I kind of, I'm out there, right? And I've seen very closely how in some cases, or some people see it as an asset to what the company is doing. Oh, he's an engineer and he's comfortable talking in front of people. That's amazing. That's great, right? But then like a project can shift another person. I mean, I've had personal experiences. Now another person has to say over it, and all of a sudden it's a liability.
Now my work hasn't changed, right?
Exactly.
I'm still delivering. In fact, in some cases, I'm doing more because of that other part you're talking about, like the piling on and stuff. But if I want to ultimately, let's just say, set this person up to fail or show them as an incompetent person, I'm going to try to highlight everything that can help paint that narrative.
Exactly.
And then that has an effect. So let me ask you this then, rather. What type of effect that have on the person? Because I love engineering or whoever we're talking about in this case. They love what they're doing, but they're experiencing these things. What's sort of the effects of that?
And see, I hate this term, but it's most apropos right now. It has that chilling effect. Okay. You were on fire. You were on fire with your workload. You were on fire with all the other stuff that you were doing. And you were getting praise for it. You weren't doing it for the praise, but you were getting that acknowledgement that says, I'm doing a good job. This is fantastic. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, what I was doing is no longer working for you guys. Yeah. It's a chilling effect. Your fire is now out. And the thing about it is, really what's going on is you're going to start experiencing some of that workplace depression. Yeah. And we're talking about that workplace depression. We're starting to get into that place of, I'm only here to get this check. Yeah. I'm only here so I won't get fined. Yeah. However, while Marshawn Lynch was doing it as a joke, for other people, this is
that's every day.
Yes.
That's every day for the last 7 years.
And I can't live this way. Wow. And for me in particular, I could not live that way. Yeah. And that was why I kept saying I was jumping from thing to thing. Yeah. Not because I was indecisive, but because I recognized that if I'm not going to be happy here, I can do this for 6 months, maybe a year. Yeah. But I'm going to get to this point in which my work is going to suffer. Yeah. I am going to suffer. And I am going to have a meltdown and may just quit. Right, so instead of doing that, let's be professional.
You have forethought.
Yes. Yes. And that's one thing that a lot of us, we have it, but we will ignore it. Right. Because I need this check. We will ignore it because I need to get established to start myself. But what we're seeing now is a lot of people, especially as we're coming out of the pandemic, I hate saying that because it's like COVID is still here. We're still in the pandemic, but we're acting like it's not. You know, we had a lot of people who they were thriving when they were working from home. Because they still had some level of peace, some level of...
They didn't have to deal with the microaggressions. They didn't have to deal with the fake smiling and all that. Right.
But now that everyone's starting to go back into the office and stuff, you're starting to see that the thing that actually kept me here is the thing that I just lost. And so now that I just lost that, I'm biding my time.
All right. So, and I love we tied it back to your path. But let's talk about the people who are no longer at the beginning. I've already have a significant amount of sunk cost. I've been in this career 10 to 15 years. I probably haven't hit 20, 30, but 10 to 15. And I spent over a decade preparing, schooling, navigating political systems to finally get here. In some cases, they're now the leader by title at the job. Now they're the principal. Now they're the manager. Right. But they still have, some of the undermining taking place, some of all those situations. Like, what is a person to do in that case? In that case, do they just become mediocre? I can't go to another job because it's not like it's another place in this city. I'm not trying to move my family all over again, right? Like, how do you cope, man? How do you cope?
Well, you have to look at how can I change the culture where I am, which is a hard one. And let me be clear, where's the camera at? Yeah. That is a hard one, trying to change the culture of the place that you're in, especially depending on your role in the institution, because you have to be in a space in which you feel valued. You have to be in a space in which you feel enjoyment. And one of the ways we actually can do that is by changing the culture. For some, it is we all as a system need to figure out what everyone is doing. We all as a system need to figure out why people are doing what they're doing or why they make the requests that they make. And for others, it is, again, putting everything out on the table. What are your actual expectations? Put that in writing.
For yourself, like I put my own expectations in writing. Okay.
Yes. And if you're working for somebody else, put my expectations in writing. What are you actually looking from me?
What do they? Okay, all right. So you bring a little more clarity.
Yeah, because it's both and. Okay. And that what do you expect from yourself at your job? But what does your job also expect from you?
Expect of you. Okay.
Because for some of us, our job is looking for 5 things. They may have given you a
bullet point list of like
20.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I've seen this happen where the job description has 20 points. But really and truly, what they really value are these random 5. And you are out here trying to do all 20. And you're falling short in these 5. Now all of a sudden you're underperforming.
But if you can identify what the real 5 are, then you can not let the other 15 stress you out.
Exactly. Okay. You can still do the other 15, but you know what your focus has to be. Okay. And that's a big problem that we have, especially when you have changing administration, when you have changing, supervisors, what have you. Yeah. What are those actual expectations? Right. Especially when you have a lot of us, young young professionals
Yeah.
who take on way more than anybody else.
Yeah.
You feel like you got to prove yourself.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I mean, in the Black community, we've always heard you got to do twice as good to get half as much.
Exactly.
Right.
And you see
that's problematic.
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely. But it's one of these things in which, again, that's the truth, though.
Yeah.
As problematic as it is, we know that it's true. Like, again, talking about a university president who was just let go by their board
right.
for doing everything right,
Yeah.
for being the most qualified and the most competent. However, it still wasn't good enough.
Man, I have no problem saying that there's a not so subtle, and I've said this before, double standard, right? It's like success, the measure of success, even as an entrepreneur, right? When you look at the fact where venture capital goes to 1% of Black founders, 1%, we're more than 1% of the population. That doesn't mean that there's only 1% of us that actually are, or that percentage of us that are actually entrepreneurial, that have promising businesses. But you look at like the level of proof that you kind of have to show that you're worthy to be invested in, because they don't have the same pattern recognition that they've seen when they see people that resemble Mark Zuckerberg or whatever, insert Stanford, a graduate, or whatever the case may be, right? But then also the level of what it takes for you to be indicted or accused or whatever is so much lower, right? It doesn't take as much. And so that does create this tension, man. It creates this tension of like, like I can't win. You can't.
You can't. And that's the thing that we're seeing with a lot of our young professionals now, where it's like, I've done everything you asked me to do. I stayed late. I've worked 18, 20-hour days. I've slept in my office. I produced time and time and time again. But yet and still, you're telling me that I'm not good enough? Yet and still, you're telling me that I'm not worthy of this promotion? I've been doing my job, his job, and her job. And you're telling me that they still get a higher salary than I do? That make sense.
So, and you're right, man. But I need some help though, Randolph, because I'm hearing, because I agree with you, and I have felt it, and I can tell you a lot of stories. Like I still feel a little bit, and maybe people watching this are like, all right, so what do we do then? Like it sounded like you were going down the path of, all right, create a different level of expectation or define your expectations for yourself and then from them. And then is the answer always to get out, or is the answer to just change when you're in? Like, is there, I don't know how to ask this question, but.
I mean, I kind of get where you're going, and the answer is not always get out. Because as we know, seasons change. However, you need to figure out, is it worth me staying? Okay, so that's what you're doing. You're going to see, all right, these expectations, is there potential in changing the culture that makes it worth staying? And then you kind of go through this exercise. Yeah. Okay. Because we have to be honest. For some of us, yes. For some of us, it is worth staying. Because I can get that culture change. Or because I am making that much money that I have the time and the energy to go take my vacations. For others, it's I have a plan. And let's be real. For those three people, where it's worth staying because I have a plan, or it's worth staying because I can get that culture change, or it's worth staying for the people here or whatever the case may be. That's enough. You have to figure out what is your why for staying in this position. For others, it's no, I got to go. I don't see anything that's worth it. And cool. Now let's be real. There are two options there. You can go with a plan, or you can go without a plan. Now I'm always of the mind, please go with a plan. Please go with a plan. I'm just like, forget all y'all. I'm about to burn this whole place down. How you gonna pay for your rent next month? I don't know. Exactly. And for a lot of us, we do that. We get fed up to the point where it's just like, it's just forget it. I'm out. But then we also have quite a few of us who will, they'll be on their work computers. On LinkedIn. Indeed. And they'll be on their work computers doing it. And that's also a big sign. Like you heard this term last year, quiet quitting. It's not quiet. But as an employer, as an entrepreneur, as a CEO, whatever, you need to start asking yourself, why are people doing that? Oh, it's just these young people, they're lazy and blah, blah, blah. No, it's because they see through your nonsense. And seeing through the nonsense, we're like, we're not going to take that. I know, that's right. Hey, shout out to my team. Hey, Steph, don't quiet quit on your boy. Don't quiet quit on. We can talk about it. I promise you, we can talk about it. But that's the sort of thing that happens where you're feeling undervalued by your employer, you're feeling undervalued by your team, and you're feeling overworked. That's a recipe, and it's a recipe that we've seen play out time and time and time again. Have we, man? So this segment is called Pass or Fail. This segment is called Pass or Fail, and I'm going to say a couple of statements, and you just tell me if it passed, you agree with it, true, or fail, which means that
It's false.
Right.
All right. Number one, working longer hours means greater productivity.
Fail.
He did not even let me finish. Half a second. All right. Talk about that. The working longer hours.
We all have our limits.
Okay.
If you look at what's known as the Yerkes-Dobbs arousal curve, the idea being is we all have a sweet spot. If you don't have enough stimulation, you are not going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
If you have overstimulation, you're still not going to do it. You got to find your middle ground, your sweet spot.
Oh, okay.
And the same thing goes when it comes to our rest cycles. So at the very beginning of our day, you see people walking around with their "don't talk to me until I get my coffee" sort of thing. Like, you got to get started. You got to get revved up. But once you're going and you're good, but you're going to come to a point in which you crash, regardless of who you are, how much coffee you drink your Monsters, your No-Dos, or whatever the case may be. Yeah. You're going to get to a point in which you crash. And so working longer is not necessarily better, because when you are at your peak, you're working most efficient. Mm-hmm. I mean, you have people who may say, well, I work better at certain times of the day. That's fine. But what the point is, once you start getting outside of your peak, you're no longer as efficient as you were before.
So even if you pull an all-nighter, if you're outside of that peak, then you really just spin your wheels. I felt that sometimes, Joe. I definitely have. And something came to mind, but I want to get off track. But like, I just wonder if there's a way to widen your curve, though. To widen, like, are there habits you can do? Maybe you'll give them that during the next segment. All right. Yeah. All right. Money can be a motivator, and I think you already kind of alluded to this.
Yeah, that is true. That is the past. Money can be a motivator. Okay. However, it's not as much of a motivator as people think. Money can definitely get your foot in the door. Money can definitely keep you for a period of time. But once you get to a point,
does it flatten out though? Yeah. Like I feel like I've read, and I don't know, maybe you can confirm or deny, that there is almost like a number where people are like, I have all my needs, I have everything I need, to where they just start thinking about other things they need in their life. Right.
There is. Yeah. And of course, on average, that number is somewhere around 160, 170.
Boom. Okay.
However, when you start getting up into those numbers, family, you can afford to take care of your family, you can afford to take care of your kids. For the most part, you can get a nice, decent house. It's not necessarily going to be a McMansion, but you got enough bedrooms, you got enough bathrooms. If something goes wrong with the car, you can get it fixed. At that point, when everything is secured, you're like, okay, so now what? Now what? You have enough money for your annual vacation or your 2 vacations or whatever. Right. Again, now what? Now what?
I feel like my number and my kids' number might be different. Right. Because I might be straight, but the kids might be like, now you need to buy this for me. But I feel you though, like the now what goes into the area as you look at Maslow's hierarchy, which we all in our psychology 101. Self-actualization is where we're ultimately trying to get to in that framework. So that's beyond money.
Yeah, it is. That's beyond money. And for a lot of people, their now what is most certainly that thing that's beyond money. Yeah. Do I have time with my family? Right. So for a lot of us, you can get up to that number, but at what cost? Yeah. Yeah. Like, let's be real.
Man. Okay. All right. Another statement. Most people don't really want to work hard.
Oh, that's a false. That's a fail.
That's a fail. So you think most people want to work hard?
Now, the thing about it is the definition of hard. Okay. And the reason why I say that is because what you do, that's probably going to be hard to me. Okay. But what I do doesn't feel hard to me, but it's hard to somebody else. It's going to get kind of weird here for a second.
Go ahead. I want to hear it.
Now, as we define that thing that's hard.
Oh, okay. Pause. But here's the thing. You're talking about people, when it's something that they like to do, they're passionate about, it doesn't matter how difficult it gets. Right. They're good with being involved in difficult work. Right. Just as long as it's the caveat of, hey, it's what I want.
It was what I wanted. It's meaningful to me. And so, for example, you see these people who will go not shrimp, but like deadliest catch. They're out there in the middle of the Alaskan oceans or whatever. They're in the Arctic and they're hunting for crab. Right. No.
That's some difficult work.
Me. I'm not. Not me. Yeah. But for some of those people, they love it.
They love it.
And
they can do it.
Yes.
I mean, if I got whatever, a pay might even be crazy, right? Mm-hmm. But it's enough. It's their number. Right. And they can just like, hey, I can do this with the rest of my life.
Exactly.
Wow.
And it's hard work. Yeah. And so even with what you do, it's hard work. Yeah, it is. However, it's what you love, it's what you're passionate about that keeps you there. And that's why you're saying the number matters. Yeah. But if you're not in love with what you do, if you're not passionate about what you do,
Okay. I got some more. All right. This kind of goes into the world of diversity a little bit, but like different working styles are required for maintaining a harmonious relationship and effectiveness in the workplace.
That is the past.
Okay.
The thing about when you're talking about our working styles, the way I works best for me. The way Tanisha, my wife, works is what works best for her. We work completely differently.
Right.
However, it's a formula that fits for the business.
Compatibility. Yes. Okay.
And we see that in working spaces and working environments all the time. There are some people who are like a type A personality.
True.
And you need that type A personality to stay on target, stay on track in the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
You also have your type B personalities. These are the people that will actually reduce the tension.
Yeah.
However, a type B reduced tension is not the most effective in
Right. They might not get the
places.
results. They might not drive the results that you need all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so you need to have some level of balance that works for whatever entity you are in.
Yeah.
And so for everyone who's actually in a position right now, you probably need to be in that position. However, what is required, that varies.
Yeah.
So for some days, I have a staff under me. For some days, I have to be type A.
Right.
Even though by nature, I'm type B.
Got you.
But there are some days in which I have to be, hey, have you got your notes done?
Yeah.
Have you done what you need to do? Have you prepared for this outreach? Have you done this? Have you done that? Have you done this?
Yeah.
But that's not me by nature.
By default. Yeah. That's not your default. And by the way, do you buy into, I know I don't want to get too deep in this, but do you buy into the whole personality styles and all that? Myers-Briggs?
Not so much Myers-Briggs, but there are definitely personality styles.
Okay, yeah.
And the reason why I kind of make that distinction is because a lot of us, we do change and we do shift based on situations.
Yeah.
And most of the situations that force us to change aren't at the work job.
Yeah.
Work job. They're not at the job, but stuff outside of work. So for example, when I was single, I did one thing one way. When I was married, it's different. Now I got to be home at a particular time.
Exactly.
Start having kids. Now I got to be home a little bit early. I got to work differently.
You got to be like, hey, pick up after yourself, even though, it's different. It's different.
And that's the one thing about it is, personalities will shift based on stuff happening outside of the job, which is a weird dynamic because everyone expects you to still leave all this stuff away and show up at work.
Right.
However, let's be real.
It's symbiotic.
Yes.
Which is why a person can have a different level of satisfaction at different stages of their lives too.
Right.
Within a career. All right, so let's get here. I can't let you get out of here without giving us again some more tips on how to kind of cope with this stuff. You talked a little bit about making some clarity around what you expect for yourself and what is expected of you in the job as you try to process whether you should stay or go. What are some things on the personal side, mindset shifts that you think a person can do, whatever?
So there are a few things. All right, so the first one, if you can, leave your job at work.
Leave it, okay.
Leave all that stuff at work.
Do not take it home.
Don't.
What if you work at home, though?
Well, see, look, have your office, have your space, but leave that stuff there as best as you can. I know that's not always a possibility for many of us, but as best as you can, try to make that sharp separation, that sharp division between work and home, or work and not work. You got to take care of yourself. And it's more
than all the time. What does that mean?
But it's more than just, first, 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night. You need that as best as you can. Let's be real. Some people can't. It's tough, for whatever reason you can, but try as best as you can to get your 7 to 8 hours of sleep. Work out, drink your water and all that sort of thing. That's all going into our realm of self-care. So you got to leave your work at work. You have to work on your self-care. And also looking at you mentioned it briefly, looking at your mindset, trying to develop that growth mindset, which is hard, especially if you're getting beat up at work.
Right.
But that notion of, I'm never, Nelson Mandela had that quote, I never fail. Either I succeed or I learn. And the idea behind this was not a fail. What did you just learn from this? Well, I learned I don't want to do that. Or I learned I'm not going to do that. Or I learned that the expectations of my job are changing.
Right.
All of these things, they matter as you determine for yourself what is going to be my next move.
Even in the pile of toxicity, there's some lessons that you can kind of learn, that you can pull out. That doesn't excuse the environment at all.
Not at all.
But you're saying make the most of, let's say the toxic work environment or the undermining or whatever that be going on. Maybe you can find some areas to sharpen up your game.
And not just sharpen up your game, but also as you're making your plan for exit. Now, that's the third thing. I don't like saying it out loud like that, but you got to know, you got to have a plan for escape. You got to have a plan for exit. Whether it's my 5-year plan or my 10-year plan, what is your plan for your next move? Because let's be real, in today's environment, it's not like it was for our parents or our grandparents. My grandfather worked one job his entire 40 plus years of work. Worked at one steel mill.
Not anymore.
Exactly.
Millennials changed that.
Jumping, and you have to. So what's your exit strategy? And along with that, was this 4? And 4A. What is in your pardon my language, in your effort account.
Yeah.
Meaning,
get the money, get the bread up.
Exactly, because if I'm going to make a shift, if I'm going to make a change,
you need it.
I want to know that I can, if I'm going to flip the table one day because you got me that mad, if you're going to have me up in your office, you're going to start berating me or yelling at me or whatever,
right?
And I am not going to take that.
Right.
So I know that I need to have a cash storage that says I can leave when I want.
Got you.
I am not tied to this job, not beholden to this job.
This paycheck is not handcuffs for me.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what is happening with a lot of us.
Right.
Which, earlier we were talking about those people who are in a job that they don't like, but they're still there because that check got you held.
Yeah.
So being in a position which you can say, whatever your number is,
I'm out.
I got this in my savings account.
Yep.
I have this in my high yield savings account. I have this in my mutual fund or whatever the case may be. I can go 5, 6, 7 months. I can go a year.
And I'm straight. I don't have to take this anymore. No, that's what's up. That's good. We got to do another podcast on finances at some point, Joel. But I'm going to do this because we got to end up here. And I really appreciate all the great, but you do this for a living. So obviously that's why I feel this with your wife and I feel this with you. Like I can just talk forever. Maybe I need to book a session or something.
Oh, we can do that.
Yeah. But do we do this for me? Go ahead and give a shout out maybe to a promo to whatever your company is. And then if you don't mind, conclude with like a final word of wisdom.
Okay.
You can do it direct to camera right here.
All right. Well, my name is Randolph Brooks. Well, Dr. Randolph Brooks. I don't do that enough.
Yeah, doctor.
Name is Dr. Randolph Brooks. My wife and I, we started our own psychology practice, Brooks Psychological Services. We are licensed in Connecticut, Massachusetts, and North Carolina. The thing about our going away message is essentially this. When it comes to taking care of yourself, you know better than anyone else. When it comes to what you need, you know better than anyone else. When it comes to working in the C-suite or working as a college student, working as a professor, you know what is best for you. And we also know life gets hard. Like life is life. Life be lifing sometimes, for better or for worse. And that's why we are here. We're here to actually help people through their periods of transition, through the not just microaggressions, the outright aggression that you may get at work, the racism, the homophobia, the xenophobia, all the phobias that we experience as workers, as staff, as competent professionals, as high-level executives. Everyone feels it, everyone gets it, and that's why we are here. We're here to help support people through their process, we're here to help people actually navigate the tricky shark-filled waters of corporate America and academic life.
Hey man, there you have it. I believe somebody out there is going to reach out at some point because y'all doing good work. Thank you so much for coming on Technical Creative, bro.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me.
All right, peace.